Howdy, howdy, howdy. I am Hunter Wilson, and here's my best Scott Manley impression. Hello, I'm Scott Manley. There you go. I probably should come up with my own original intro, but what the hell. I figure I might as well piggyback on Scott Manley for all of a couple episodes. So, starting off where we were last time, we had just finished doing a flight that accidentally left Kerbin's atmosphere. The reason why I say accidental is because the contract system gives you extra bonuses for reaching certain altitudes, but if you exceed those altitudes before you get there, or before you accept the contract, you don't get the reward. So it's kind of like you go above them and then you try and stop dead there. So I screwed that up. Now, what I just did was I accepted a contract to orbit Kerbin. I think I'm ready. I just need to unlock a few parts and I'll be good to go. There's some other contracts here which are somewhat good. This one's easy, testing Sepatron. The ones that ask you to test landed are very easy to complete. And they're quick science, like this one gives 5 science, so hell, it's worth it for the science. So I'll accept that. But in general, the landed ones are easy, but they don't usually give good rewards. In this case, the 5 science is wonderful early in the game. Thank you, Gene, for your wonderful... So yeah, today we're going to go into orbit of Kerbin. Now, what I was doing here on the research tree was I was planning on getting the LV909 engine, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. The reason being is that the LV909, it's a fairly weak engine. If you look here at the stats, it's got 50 thrust, but the important thing to know about this engine is not the thrust, it's the engine ISP, that third little bar there. What the ISP essentially is a measurement of specific impulse. For laymen such as myself, honestly, it's fuel efficiency. So ASL stands for at sea level. So at sea level, it's got an efficiency of 300, and in a vacuum, it's got an efficiency of 390. Now, if we compare that to some of our starting technology here, at best they get 240 in a vacuum and 370 in a vacuum, compared to the 390. That means that the LV909 is perhaps the most efficient engine in a vacuum for beginners. This is important because getting into orbit requires quite a bit of fuel, and the more you can spare, the better you're going to do. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and make our craft that's going to get in orbit. Alright, here we are in the VAB. Now, when I last left off, we had this. This got us actually incredibly high. I was quite impressed with it. So I'm going to reuse this. So first of all, I'm going to stick on 2 of these Sepatrons here and just have them fire at launch to meet the other contract I picked up. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strap on... let's go with 2 solid rock boosters down here at the bottom. Have them activate when everything else does. Just checking my parts. And on the top, instead of using a solid rock booster, which is harder to control, I'm going to put our new LV909. Now, weight's good. Okay. Now let's get our staging properly oriented. Okay, so the bottom 5 boosters, I guess technically, since Septrons counts as boosters, will activate first, carry us up to a pretty good height, and then we'll take over with the LV909, which is throttleable. Try saying that with me. Throttleable. That is really hard to say, and I just found that out. So I'm just tweaking here to get as much fuel as I can without exceeding this weight limit down in the bottom. And the reason is the game won't let you, in career mode, the game won't let you continue if you exceed a weight limit on the pad, because the pad can't support more weight. I guess in this case, since it's a dirt pad, you'd sink into the ground and thus it'd be useless. Damage all the parts and get sand in them. Yeah, let's double check. Okay, let's add some extra parachutes too. Might as well. We don't have any batteries, and oh, we have mystery goo. Mystery goo is part of getting science, so we're gonna strap 2 on there. And this craft is looking pretty good. We're right at the weight limit here. So let's call this our V3. I know I'm really original at naming things. Check, make sure. Sorry about that. Got something in my throat. Check to make sure that we are completing these contracts. And it looks like we're good to go. Alright, let's take her out to the pad and see how she does. Alright, we're out here on the pad. Let's see if there's any science we can do while we're here. Jeb's in the cockpit, as per usual. That's interesting, I didn't know you could do that. Alright. Mystery goo. Goo doesn't seem to be doing much right now, of course it's not. Getting stuff from the launch pad isn't exactly valuable science here, and I can send out rovers later on. So that's not really worth what we're doing, the cost. I'm going to throttle up to max, even though it doesn't matter for the solid rocket boosters. And then we'll be well on our way. Now, I want to try and explain things as I go through. There's a lot to be said, and it's a little hard to cover it all in 20-minute videos. But when we start, we're going to be going straight up. I mean, this is true for most rockets. You want to get out of the thickest part of the atmosphere. Most rocket scientists like to call the bottom, or sea level, basically the soupy part of the atmosphere, because it's so thick that rockets are less efficient. They don't produce less power, but they're fighting against air resistance. So in the end, basically being lower in the atmosphere is just a worse time for rockets. So we want to get out of the thickest part of the atmosphere, and then we'll start doing what's called a gravity turn, where essentially you start tipping over and speeding up horizontally rather than vertically. I'll explain more about that in a second, but let's get launched, because I'm sure you guys love looking at my rather phallic rocket here. I did not intend for it to look that way, now that I think about it. Whoops! Okay, blast off. And we completed the contract for the Separatrons. They provide a nice little initial boost. And let's see. Okay, we're doing good so far. We'll ditch this stage once it's out of fuel. Now you'll note that solid rocket boosters, they can actually overheat if you put too many of them together. These ones shouldn't, because there's not enough of them. So we're going to let momentum carry us up a little bit, and I'm going to start turning about here and then fire. Now I don't think I'm going to get into orbit, actually. Reason being is I just do not have enough of a thrust-to-weight ratio yet, and I don't think I have enough fuel. But who knows, maybe I can get into orbit because I am so high up now, but we'll find out. So the reason why, continuing what I was saying earlier, the reason why you need to start turning over and going fast sideways is because getting into orbit is not about height. Sure, you do need to get a fair bit of height to get into orbit, but the reason you need height, at least for Kerbal or Earth, is to get out of the atmosphere. The atmosphere slows you down. And so you need to get above the atmosphere, and oh boy, we're not going to do that here. Okay. Alright, continuing on, because Bandicam paused there for a moment. I'm not getting into orbit. I am... dang it. So, I might as well make this a scientific mission. The reason I'm not getting into orbit here is I just don't have enough power. This rocket is not powerful enough to keep carrying me up, at least for the mass. So I'm going to have to do a redesign. In the meantime, I guess I'll spare you guys waiting forever. So I'll just do some physical time warping here. Rather than waste fuel, this is a failed mission. So we'll just splash down and collect everything up. Only a little bit of money lost. Basically, most of the money lost was from the solid rocket boosters. So in the end, it's not a total waste. We get some science out of this. So we'll splash down in just a minute. Let me open my parachutes. God, this is embarrassing. I've never really failed like this. At least, well, I have failed like this, but never broadcast my failures before. I like to pretend that I don't fail. Then again, who likes to admit that they fail? Okay, parachutes deployed. So, just a little bit before water, I'm going to turn on the engine just to prevent the engine from breaking. Things tend to break when you're going above 5 meters a second. So I might as well land and not break the engine. Generally a good thing. In real life, NASA actually has to clean out engines if they splash down. Well, usually when they splash down. Because all that seawater isn't good for rocket engines. They have to do a lot of thorough scrubbing for these suckers. What have I got in here? Flying at Kerbal. Okay. So I guess the next one will be from the oceans. So about to splash down. Whew! That was a little close. Closer than I'd like. And boink. Splashing. Alright. Get that from... Where's the... Aha. So you got to keep in mind where the hatch is when you get a Kerbal out. Jeb, you are not flying. As much as you like to think you are not flying. Just take the data. So for those who don't know, Kerbal does this stupid thing where you can't take more than one crew report. But if you take the data out and then put it back in, you can take more crew reports. It's kind of bizarre. Hang on. I don't think a spacesuit was entirely necessary to get here, was it? My Scott Manley impressions are getting worse. Alright, we'll store. Get another crew report for extra science. Keep the data and recover. So out of that, we got 23.5 science. That's not bad. That can unlock another part, which will be useful for us. More importantly is the amount of money we just lost. So we lost 3% of part values, but we recovered most of our money. I'll have to go through the clips from last mission and just see how much money I just lost. But early in the game, that's huge. That can kill your game. Of course, we got Jeb back, but we got quite a bit of science, so we may be able to put, even though this was kind of a loss, it may not be a total loss. Alright, so now we're back at the screen. I think what the issue was there was mainly the weight limit on the launch pad prevents me from putting more stuff on my rocket. And what I needed was that extra wump from last episode where I had another solid rocket booster. So what I'm going to do... oh wait, first let's deal with the science issue. Sorry about that. Let's deal with the science issue. Okay, so we got 39 science. Let's see what we can use it for. Oh, we can use it to unlock both of these. That'll be helpful. I probably won't use these right away, but I might. Come to think of it, I have an idea on how to reduce the weight of the craft. So So coming back, let's get rid of these Septrons. They're not helping. They were just for that one task. And now, instead, let's reduce a little bit of the fuel. So that reduces the load on the lower sections. So now we're down to 16.7 tons. And instead of having all the solid rock boosters activate at the same time, sorry, I'm staging here. Staging requires concentration. What I'm going... Oh, stupid staging. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have the two outermost rockets activate first, and then the inner one will activate after those have been jettisoned. Hopefully that'll give me an extra boost. The whole total mass is down a little bit, which is nice. I could add more fuel, I guess. Might as well, because you do need a lot of fuel to get into orbit. Okay, that's looking pretty decent. So on the next episode, I will start with a launch, rather than putting you through the tedium of building a rocket. So join me next time. I'm Hunter Wilson, not Scott Manley. And good night to all. I really need to come up with an outro here. I'll work on that. Alright, catch you later.